that boggled my mind about
It's
people crying
it,
and
dude,
rioting over this.
the crying is what boggles my mind, because I have to admit, when I was 18 and naive, I supported Jesse,
Hmm.
and I held some placards up at his campaign at a campaign stop in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and then in '88 I worked a little bit on his campaign, and I remember he sold us out in both campaigns, but I remember in my naivety in '84, I remember when Mondale lost, and I even go back 4 years before that when Carter lost in '80. You were disappointed because we were all afraid that Reagan, in my little immature mind at the time, I was afraid that Reagan was the Antichrist, right?
Yeah.
And I know Carl are laughing, but
I,
think about
that's
but as a 14-year-old, we knew that Reagan was going to cut CETA, which by the way Nixon started. We knew a lot of those programs were going to go away. The Pell Grant program basically went away, and all those sort of things. And but at no time do I remember crying over an election. And that's
Mm.
that's as a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
14, 18, I'd wised up by the time I was 22. Right? So
Yeah.
I mean, but and I'm seeing these supposedly grown people wailing and bawling over the election, and I'm just one, I don't feel sorry for them, right?
Yeah.
And the ones, to be honest with you, I have the most disdain for are black people crying over this thing,
Yeah.
because you're crying over somebody that hates you, and so it's the whole thing I find is perplexing to me, and it also shows to me the feminization of America, and when I'm the the excessive feminization of America, because you need balance in any society. But I mean, you have these grown males crying. I'm
Hmm.
not going to call them men, and so all these sort of things are just it just shows you the destruction of the society, if you ask me.
Yeah.
um, let me add a crazy perspective for you. I am so glad that they are crying. I wish more would do it. I wish more riots would happen. I wish more, folks dissension. It's what I've been waiting for a long time, because in it I see clients, customers, and constituents for Black progress and Black business. For
Hmm.
those of us who know how to take advantage of this and take it.
Mm.
Here's case in point. When the right was all pissed off, I deal with a Japanese guy who's more Nat Turner than most Black folk, but he's economically Nat Turner. I mean, he does not like Peckerwoods whatsoever. So what he did is when the Peckerwoods were crying about George Bush, or not George Bush, about Mitt Romney not getting in, he says, I'm putting together a right wing website that says donate XYZ for whatever because I feel your pain. And in that, he saw a bunch of whining. They didn't cry like these numbnuts that are out in the streets rioting and crying right now. They did it a whole different way. But in that, he says, I'm going to take advantage of these crackers' pain and make sure that they pay me, so that way I can go ahead and build my Japanese society or whatever he's doing. Because these idiots that are out there right now, with and being a trader, everything's an opportunity and everything's an advantage. These folks that are out here spending resource, time, money, because it takes money to go ahead and get some Molotov cocktails. You can't, they don't sell those free at Walmart. These folks that are spending their angst is going to be channeled, whether it's into buying a Coke or Smart Water or buying whatever it is, just like they did at Ferguson, just like they did in Milwaukee. That was complete and total opportunity. Now, I'm not saying that I want to take advantage to that perspective, but these folks also have revenue because they also work. They also need products, goods, and services. I deal with a lot of like hardcore, I mean, I'm talking clan folk, and this is in the music biz.
Uh huh.
One of the guys that I deal with, and I think I told you, brother Kwame,
Hmm.
he's one that the reason my music is on like e-television and HBO and the things that I've written over the years. I got singles right now that are playing, and the reason is because when I talk to this guy, he's anti anything that has to do with Black folk. When I
Mm.
walk into his thing, the first thing I have my little Republican button on, and I talk to the guy.
Mm.
And because of the fact that every time I walk in, we don't talk music when I walk in. The moment we walk in, he's like, "Oh, I see you've got the Republican pin, brother. I've got this thing for you. I mean, it's good, our right wing." And I'm thinking green wing, okay, because that allows me to go ahead and give the money to folks like you, brother, and others to build their
Mhm.
businesses.
That's
You know,
right.
it's because of the fact that I'm thinking this way. Now, these individuals that are out in the street are going to be the same way. The good thing is they think they identify with, you know, with quote unquote the so-called minority, if you want to call it that. Hey, whatever you
Mhm.
want to identify with, I don't care. Bottom line is what if you're going to be spending revenue, put the revenue in our pockets so we can go ahead and build the way we should. Okay, the way that it needs to be, not
Yep.
necessarily in some kind of liberal, you know, I'm crying and rioting type stuff. No,
Mm-hmm.
in a competitive environment, because y'all know exactly what's going on. Is, you know, who he's picking in his cabinet,
Yeah.
who he's picking in for. I mean, hey, they're competing and they're hardcore. And I've
Yep.
cussed Donald Trump out before. When back in '93, I told you about the deal, brother Kwame. And
That's
I've
right.
just got back from the White House from doing a gig for Latinos 4 weeks ago. This is a competitive environment. These individuals that are out there, they don't know how to compete, but they're definitely good resource, monetary, physical, any type of resource for those that are thinking. I just want to add that perspective for you.
And that's a good point because I read. Speaking of that, brother, Trump's 10-point plan. It does speak to that whole competitiveness thing. You know, I mean, this is a time for winners, basically. Winners are versus losers, basically. I mean, yeah, you're dealing with the hardcore white man now that likes to compete. You know, it's going to be the hardcore black man and black woman that likes to compete that's going to thrive in this environment. You know.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's what it should be all about, competition. Everybody's not going to be able to get involved in that. I think this is the last hurrah, basically, for whites, though.
Yeah.
But the thing is that these Latinos and Hispanics, most of the Latinos, they not quite ready yet. They do have the numbers. We'll have them. That's why I hope Trump export some of these illegals that fall in that category, because there'd be less competition for blacks, especially the ones who don't have the capability to deal with it.
Well, they've been exporting. You know, it's on record that Obama has deported more illegals than the last 5 presidents.
Exactly, and
But
that's
they
another
don't talk
thing.
about that. But he doesn't talk about it because it would be anti his quote
His
unquote
image.
stated platform. That's how come the Hispanics were upset with him, because he deported a whole lot of them.
And to me, that is the danger of liberalism,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that, um, yeah, you know, in the sense that liberalism has a smile on their face while they screw you with the KY jelly,
Mm-hmm.
basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, the so-called bully conservatives is telling you he's coming after you, you know, and you know, maybe there'll be no KY jelly, but at least you have a chance to defend yourself,
Mm-hmm.
if that being the case. And then to me, it also shows that the Hispanics are able to vote on their issues
Mm-hmm.
better than we as African Americans are.
Mm-hmm.
And they study what hurts them. You know, I mean, us, has anything been significant done to reduce our prison our imprisonation or imprisoning rate, our prison rate of our
It's starting for the very same reason that I figured that I was telling Keedy a long time ago. I said when the money doesn't work anymore, they're going to start doing, because they just passed that proposition in California about letting out non-violent offenders.
yeah.
Uh, uh, the marijuana, all that stuff. When it no longer makes money sense, it's going to go away, and it doesn't make money sense anymore. You're going to have to start putting that money, instead of incarcerating people, into educating white men, and white men who
Very
can't
true.
afford it anymore.
Well,
Very
and we got to, I know y'all heard me say, I
Mm-hmm.
think that the money, the limited resources that we have should be spent keeping young blacks out of prison and leading them toward a higher educational attainment, skill attainment. Because if they don't have that, they're not gonna be able to go any place. And you know yourself, when a person
hmm
is able to throw a degree on the table, it shows two things. One, they got the degree, but it also shows that they have survived the rigors that's involved with getting that degree,
And
Yeah.
especially
I'm
the
gonna
engineering.
I'm gonna put a little twist on that. I would even say, to me, some degrees are worthless. I think, in addition to a meat and potatoes degree,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have a meat and potatoes vocational skill if you're not going to have a meat and potatoes degree.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be focused on, especially with this new era here with infrastructure projects coming up. And it sounds like this is serious.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it has to be because it was somebody that was saying it. I think it was Jeremy Rifkin, and he was talking about the fourth industrial revolution. He said before you, I said even the fourth industrial revolution needs a build out. In other words, it has to have an infrastructure. And he said
Yes.
for the next 10 years there's going to be a big rush to build out the infrastructure for the fourth industrial revolution. So in other words, those skills will be especially needed over the next 10 years. I'll see if I can find it for you guys and find the lecture for you guys when he was talking about it. Rifkin's been around for about 30 years writing on this kind of stuff. That's how I really got into um, deep politics and the global financial structure. Was Rifkin in his book. I think it was in 1994. It's talking about the end of work. And that's when I really got into it.
Now,
Go ahead.
let me take a microcosm view of Rifkin. He, of course, that might be a macrocosm view.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm gonna give you a personal microcosm.
Okay.
And this is why I wholeheartedly believe in exactly what the two of you guys were just saying about having those skills. The three of you guys were saying about having those skills.
Mm-hmm.
I have a broken down futon right now, and I've been looking for like 3 years. I've been asking everybody, I need someone to weld me a futon. Now I have this problem where the mold had eaten out the cabinet underneath my sink, and I'm going all over to try to find a black company somewhere, some black folk that could actually do cabinet work and fix that for me. That right there is that kind of skill. A year ago, my glass broke in my front window. Okay, I had to get some peckerwood and his son to get it because there are no black companies. Now, if we can't do it on that scale, and this whole thing that you're talking about, Rifkin, I'm gonna tell you, it's a little bit more than just going ahead and building infrastructure. That's the tried and true thing that the so-called presidents have been saying for decades or for centuries. What they're talking about is isolationism and protectionism. What happened when all those foreign companies went and bought all these assets with those dollars that they've had all over the years? They went ahead and competed and brought their folks in to manage as well everything from call centers to the Japanese and the Chinese buying energy and everything else. Right there, they're going to go ahead and get the premium. Why America becomes a service-based economy, which is or a gig economy if you want to call it that, which means no jobs. Not too long ago, there was a professor that said. I can't remember. It was a business professor, and not Harvard or one of these others, that told their students, "Don't go for no PhDs. Y'all need to get in this gig economy because that's where the money is, and that's where the money will be." Now, because of that, of course, the bridges, the tunnels, and everything else are crumbling like crazy. They're going to still outsource it to who can do it very cheaply and get it done very quickly. And whether they're talking about, and I have to say, Brother Pianki, you're right on it when talking about deporting these illegals, because they're going to actually bring more in, not maybe from Mexico. You might see them coming in, for instance, what they're starting to do, bringing those extra folks from Australia, the Bangladeshi and everybody. You're going to start seeing more come from Syria, more from Ukraine, wherever they can get cheap labor to go ahead and make sure that they can get these projects done without hurting their bottom line, and they can be more isolationist and protection.
I can give you a little bit of pushback on that, Brother Carl, because a government's first thing before anything else is security and safety. And if you can't put, these white guys, what you saw on that screen is frustrated people not working, and you get a bigger explosion if you start bringing in, if you have a gig economy, you have construction going across the country where you're paying dollars and they're not working because they're at their limit. You're gonna have riots in the streets, and that's one thing that nobody wants. I don't care what corporation, company, or whatever it is. If it does no good if you have an infrastructure. People are going to tear it up, and people are getting ready to tear it up.
And I agree with Keith on that one, Brother Carl. And the reason being again is that whites have leverage this time, and their hidden lever is that there will be an armed revolt. If they are not delivered something.
Let me give you some other pushback. They're also going to appease them. Irrespective, a company has to do what it has to do to make sure its margins aren't compressed, and it does not care who. Okay? One, they already are emboldening that military or that security infrastructure for that case, i.e., your Giuliani's, i.e., your Clarks, everyone else, because they do see that. They do see the fact that they're not blissfully unaware of the fact that they're saying we promised all these Pennsylvania steel, that whatever, the same folks that Trump dogged getting Chinese steel, and not just there. All these other workers, coal workers that are pissed off with Obama and whatnot. The thing is the margins aren't there for coal factories for these folks at this present time, especially in infrastructure. They're not there yet for them to do it. Okay, they have to put in infrastructure so they can actually afford it. It's basically they won't be able to hire anyone if they can't afford because their margins are so compressed to actually operate. That's where they're at right
you
now.
have no choice. You will not have a society if you do not. You don't have a choice.
Right. I mean, if in other words, if they when you start to see wage inflation, because that's what's going to happen, and that's I have this whole report on it. It was great. Actually, 3 different reports on it from these capital management companies that I've been reading over the weekend. And the thing is when if they're gonna try to appease the same folks that got them in, i.e., the disenfranchised and all those other folks, which is actually not the majority like they're talking. These companies will not be able, because they're going to have a wage inflation in order for them to even be able to think about going ahead and operating, whether it's infrastructure building or anything else.
Well, eventually
they can't afford it.
Eventually, and I know none of you guys are going to agree with me. Eventually, the universal basic income is the only way out, because automation is going to happen, and you're going to put people out of work. And especially in the United States, there's 340 million guns. You cannot fight that many people in the urban warfare. It's not going to happen. It's not going
That's
to
why
happen.
I said appeasement.
Either a universal basic income, or they're going to have to do some severe land reform. Everybody gets 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah.
Tax cuts.
To feed themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only way it can happen.
I mean, and this is universal. This is not something that's an American or British. This is the World Economic Forum. From the Chinese all the way to the British to the Americans, they all agree on the same thing. It's the capitalism as we know it is probably going to be over within the next 10 years. The rules aren't going to apply.
And that's why there are even some compromises with the automation technology now.
Right.
They're starting to have something called collaborative robots, where the robot can work closely with the human being. Typically now with robots, you load something in the cell, the door goes down in the cell, and the robot welds or grabs everything. Because of the weight of the robot and the swing of the robot, it's very dangerous in that cell. And I've known of a supplier where a guy got killed because he didn't follow procedures doing in there. That robot turns around and smacks you in the head, you're done, right? But now they're using these smaller robots that can assemble with the human being there, and they find that this is more flexible. The Germans are really employing this now. So that I think they're trying to find a little bit of a compromise to the automation, but as you said, that's not going to fully work and fully employ everybody. And yeah, I'm with you on this one, that they're going to have to satisfy, especially the disaffected whites. But it is right in the sense the stats say it wasn't the disaffected whites that voted primarily for Trump. It was those between $50,000 and $99,000 a year that voted for Trump, and you can say they're disaffected because of the way the healthcare premiums went up. And I do not see how you can prevent inflated wages without going to a single payer system.
Yeah, you got to have that.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't understand. Because when you look at somebody's wage bill, like for instance, let's say in Germany, let's say the average auto worker in the United States makes $22 an hour. The average one in Germany makes $30 an hour. However, when you look at the healthcare liability and all the other things associated with that, fully fringe pay for the U.S. worker is higher than the German worker. So until you get some sort of single payer type system, and I don't even see how Trump is going to avoid it.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I can vouch for that because I used to make my wage was $25 an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you factored in my retirement, my health care, and the other stuff that went in my package was $70 an hour.
And that's the way it is in the auto industry, Keith. And this is something I work on every day. I have to estimate people's wages, to estimate how parts are made. And it's very true. As I said, anybody that sits down and kowtows to this libertarian form of economics, which, the libertarian guys think Trump is their guy, as the neoliberals think Obama's their guy. But to
Right.
me, one, neoliberalism died in this election.
Yeah.
But very soon, Trump is going to realize that libertarianism is going to die. And
Yeah.
it's probably going to happen.
Exactly.
And it's going to die within the next 2 years, or he's gone
Yeah.
in the next 2 years.
Right.